Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the spoiler talk for Malorie by Josh Malerman, which is, it probably goes without saying, but is the sequel to Bird Box. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about.
I want to start towards the beginning,
Mhm.
and which will also take us towards the end, I guess. But a bit of ingenuity there, right? Into Josh tricking Mallory into thinking that the creatures can get you by touch now.
Holy shit. If you want to talk about. So that's probably one of the smartest things in the book, if you ask me, is the fact that he didn't just raise the stakes at the beginning, he like blew the stakes away. Because if you think about it, that single interaction with Annette going crazy, even though she's blind, probably was a major reason that Mallory was doubling down on being so strict for the
Mm-hmm.
next fucking decade, which is what had the effect on Tom and Olympia kind of growing up the way they did. So like, and then to reveal what actually happened at the end of the book, man, I was just gobsmacked. I never saw it coming. And I thought it was just excellently executed.
Yeah, like I said, he tricks Mallory with this little bit of fiction, right? But he tricks all of us in that same,
Yeah, because
like
we
we're
don't know
all
what to
living
think.
with the same. Yeah, because now it's not good enough just not to look. Now you can't have exposed skin.
Right.
I mean, it becomes a different thing. And there are parts in the book, where it's hot out and Mallory's wearing her hoodie and she's got gloves and long sleeve hoodie on. You know what I mean? And you're like, it adds an additional layer of discomfort even reading those parts, because not only is she walking around blind, but like layered in her own sweat, all of them, right? I mean, we know the kids don't always do that
Right.
because they can always count on good old Mallory to have her blindfold on, but yeah, it was a very, very interesting take on how one person with something unintentional like affects Mallory and her children's lives for the next 10 years.
Yeah. And then beyond that, like how much they took it as fact. Like at later on in the book when Tom gets touched by something outside, when he's outside reading the census stuff, and then he knows that there's a creature nearby, and he feels on his bare arm, he's like daring it, and then it touches him. After that, how he keeps wiping his arm, like brushing
Mm-hmm.
his arm, because
Yep.
like in his mind, that's that's like a highly infectious possibility. Like something could go wrong because it touched me, and he keeps wiping his arm. So even though there's no science to it and there's no reality to it, it's real enough to him where like he feels it, like his mind is manifesting it. So that's how like crazy seriously they took the situation.
The census taker.
Yeah.
Census taker is probably the most interesting character in the book to me, because that guy, like his motivations would be interesting, like his journey would be interesting, and I guess I just wanted to mention it here because he comes and goes, like that's it, like we never see him. Right, he comes in, he talks to Tom, he leaves some shit on the porch, like talks to Mallory through the door, leaves some stuff on the porch, and that's it. He's gone, which, it's his job, right? He's just going to move on and continue doing his thing.
Yep.
But that's a guy whose head I want to be inside of for a little bit.
Yeah, because you have to. It's the thankless job of the universe. But if nobody does it, there's no internet, there's no text messaging, there's no way for information to be shared aside from some motherfucker walking around the country hand writing copies of, information that he's handing out to people. And so like, yeah, I that's another character or situation that kind of blew me away because it never would have occurred to me, but like it absolutely feels 100% organic that would be something that would happen in a situation like that. And guys taking a lot of risks just to like try and help the world heal, by going around talking to people. Huge risk. Like, his life is in danger basically every moment when he's walking around with a wheelbarrow full of papers, more or less, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. There's something, I don't know how to phrase this. Gary talks to Tom pretty late in the book, right? And he talks to him about how maybe you can see them because you grew up in a world with them, and the idea of them isn't so horrifying to you and stuff. Like, that was a really, really interesting concept that he was talking about. Like, the fact that he has lived with the knowledge that they're there the whole life might keep him from going crazy if he sees one. And it wasn't necessarily explored through the characters. It's just that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like one of the grandest ideas in the book, like around creatures that I thought of is, yeah, what if somebody has never known there weren't creatures? Would they be affected the same way?
Yeah. And well, and I feel like the understanding of why it's all happening is unstable enough that like anything could go like, because even during the book, you know, some animals go mad, some don't, you know, so, and I think that's one of the like polarizing things about the Indian River, town in general is that if you think about it, the people who are trying to safely find solution for things are probably thinking and doing things very similarly to insane people who are taking huge risks in a stupid way. So like I approached that town as being like a bad place, but it ended up maybe it's not 100% a bad place, but it's also a very, it's like a powder keg. So it was interesting to see how, yeah, the ideas that are kind of germinating in people are super dangerous, but like, you know, it kind of proves out that like sometimes you have to take those risks in order to make things better. So I think he did a great job of keeping everything very ambiguous, but then also kind of pushing forward.
The thing I liked about Indian River was that, like you said, the census taker was kind of organic, but I'm thinking like the census taker also had to be there for the story to go the way it did.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, but them running into Gary at a place like Indian River makes perfect sense. And I know they ran into him on the train, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That's definitely a place that would draw someone like Gary. And because of their search and things that happen, Malorie also ends up there. So first of all, justifying, and I didn't think we'd see Gary. Like, I thought she was still obsessing over this guy from 10 years ago because it was pretty heavy.
Right.
In the beginning. Gary, right? She even thinks the census taker is Gary.
Every shadow is Gary, basically.
Yeah, and I didn't think we were going to see Gary. I thought Mallory was just going to annoy the shit out of me this whole book talking about Gary. But instead, Josh thought of a great way, because if you have that town, and I know you don't really watch, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of readers are reading Indian River as one of the towns from The Walking Dead, where there's been a big community put together. But basically, they like raid other communities and steal their supplies. And I don't think that it's a stretch to think the fans of The Walking Dead would think of that when they hear about Indian River, but that's totally a place Gary would end up. So I think that was really well thought out on Malerman's part.
Yeah, and if you just think about the scale of distance, from where Malorie was to the school for the blind, to the camp, to Indian River, they're all probably pretty geographically close when it comes down to it. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Gary would resurface. So I'm split because I really want to talk about Olympia, but I think that just talking about, I want to put a button on how fucked up Indian River is, because when Malorie and Olympia show up, they're walking through like, or along piles of bodies leading into the town, and like you can even tell how long they've been dead by how far they are from the town. Like the newer dead are farther away, and like they get older until they're encountering piles of bones, and so the first introduction to Indian River from a rational point of view is that the people in this town are just slaughtering the townspeople by, I'm assuming, trying things, and then they end up going mad and dying, and then they get put on a pile outside of town. It's a really creepy way to enter a town.
Oh, I don't know that you could do any creepier. I think you're right on that one.
And and the analogy to being like a literal hell made total sense, because like that's the type of thing you would think of would happen in hell.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't know. I don't know. I thought about this a little bit. Like, did all those people try to see a creature through some method, right, or whatever? Or is it just people die in the town and they just toss them outside the gate too? Was my other thought.
It'd probably be challenging to dig graves all the time.
Well, I was going to say Malorie's dad does it, right? But that's for his wife. So if Gary died in the town, would he get a grave or would he just go outside the wall?
Yeah.
Like that, so I don't know. Yes, it was a very, very creepy scene. And now that you mentioned Olympia, I guess we should probably talk about that little bitch.
Whoa. A little aggressive there, buddy.
Look, here's what I'm going to say. I totally get it that she was afraid as a child to tell Malorie that she could see the creatures because she's never, she's always been told she can't look. She has to live by the fold, right? Live by the fold, live by the fold. But at a certain point, she's a smart young lady who's read a lot of books. At a certain point, you think she would sit Malorie down before this and be like, listen, Mom, I know everything you told me, but I've been seeing the creatures since I was like 5 years old. So, and probably younger than that, right? But I mean, basically the first time she tells us she saw creatures when she was 6. It was right before the not blind lady, goes nuts. So that's probably the only thing I would pick on is I get at 6 why she didn't say it. I get it at 10, but by like 14 and being well read, I think that she would sit Malorie down and be like, listen, I appreciate everything you're doing, and you should totally keep wearing that blindfold. All I'm telling you is I can go wherever the hell I want. I can go get us more supplies, more food. I can look for other people because I am not subject to the same shit that you are.
I didn't take as harsh of an opinion on Olympia. And I think that for me, the reason is like fear that, either it would destroy everything Malorie believed in, or Malorie would see it as a betrayal of everything that she's told her to do, or something like that. Like that fear, because the way that Malorie treated the kids was so oppressive that it made Tom basically want to look at the creatures just because she said not to. So like her rule over the children was like iron fist. And so I could see why you're saying what you're saying, but I didn't think that it took away from the story for me.
No, I don't think it took away from the story for me either. I just questioned it. There's one so in characters I gave it a 9, and the only reason I didn't give it a 10 was because of Olympia and that deceit.
It's pretty baller though that she can see these fucking things.
Dude, it is.
And the explanation makes sense. Like, her mom went mad during birth.
Sure.
So she gets like a pass or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that, so I also thought about that, and I think I kind of touched on this a little bit. Well, yeah, because I was talking about Gary's conversation with Tom. Is that what it is? We have no way of knowing, right? Because Tom didn't look at a creature without the glasses on.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's the only. That's the suspicion. Yeah.
Yeah, it could very well be that, Tom has that ability too, just because he grew up with an understanding that these things are always out there.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And oddly enough, she reveals that fact like 20 minutes before everybody in Indian River gains the ability to see creatures.
Right. Yeah.
Like Olympia is unique to us for like 4 pages.
Well, because the ending, I'm like, I know I'm like at the like 88% mark, and that's when like she saves Malorie from, what do they call it, the safer room, like that pit dug in the ground.
Yep.
And I'm like, how are they going to wrap this up in 9%? Like, it felt like there was a lot to cover in a short amount of time. And so, yeah, like she reveals it to Mallory and therefore also us. And maybe 20 pages later is when the book ends. So yeah, it came fast, but I feel like, man, if you had it any earlier in the book, it would have spoiled shit. So yeah.
Yeah, the delivery was fine. I have no issue with it. I really liked the ending of the book, quite frankly, but I just thought it was so ironic that one
Right.
person, to us, gains the sight like minutes before literally anybody within spitting distance of like a grocery store or a bank or some kind of perv booth at a tanning salon or something, like, can now manufacture their own face shield to be able to see the creatures.
What's a perv booth at a tanning salon? I don't know what you're talking about.
So have you ever gone tanning?
No.
Okay, so if you go to a tanning salon, there's a special booth you can pay for that has the two-way glass where you don't actually have to tan. You could just watch other people tan.
Wait, do the other people know you're watching them?
No,
Are you serious?
no, I'm not. I completely made this up on the spot.
I was about to get terrified. First, by the existence of that kind of thing. Second, by your knowledge of the existence of that kind of thing.
Third by the choice. Do I now want to go tanning or do I want to go to the booth? I don't know which one's more exciting.
Yeah, I've got my bank app open right now, seeing what I can cover.
There you go.
Yeah.
The train. We should probably talk about the train.
Yeah.
I know that in the acknowledgments he thanks Allison for the idea of the train, but really, and genius. I'm just thinking,
Brilliant.
like, that's probably the only way. Like, I was gonna say, well, what other way would there be? I don't know how long it would have taken me to get to train, but that's probably the only form of travel at all that you could use. I mean, I guess nowadays, if it was running, you'd probably use one of those Teslas, right?
Yeah,
Like,
self-driving
just, like,
car
yeah.
technology is close, but not post-apocalyptically, I don't think.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if you ran into something blocking the road, your Tesla would just not
Yeah,
go.
that's it.
Like, it wouldn't drive into the grass or, clear the road or anything. So, yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and interesting because one of the things I enjoyed most about the book was flirting with, because to Mallory everything is dangerous, and to the kids everything is an exciting new adventure. And he did a great job of making a lot of the book both of those things. Like, the train was incredibly dangerous. Even the person, Dean, who owned and ran the train, acknowledged that, it was a scary endeavor to do. But at the same time, it created an opportunity for the characters that never would have existed otherwise. And so it was an exciting new opportunity and adventure. And I like the way that he kept it kind of simultaneously both things. And even with the passengers that are interacted with on the train, some of them are a little bit crazier and bad. Some of them are as scared as Mallory. And so I feel like Josh just wrote it like the best way you could write something like that.
Yeah. The only thing I really have to say about Dean is his fucking story about his kids was absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah. Like that he's still looking for that sliver.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. His kids somehow find a way to see outside. They're like 6 and 7 or 7 and 8 or whatever, and kill each other.
Yeah. Laughingly stab each other to death. I can't wait to see that in the movie.
Yeah. No kid. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I feel like I've covered everything spoilery that I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, a couple things. Gary's death was great because basically, like, Mallory said, "Hey kids, gonna go kill this asshole, and you're gonna help me do it." And they're like, "Yeah, of course we're gonna help you kill this asshole." And then she shoots him, and that's it. Like, he gets the most inglorious end a character could hope for. Because he's sleeping and he gets shot with a fucking crossbow and dies. Like, no glory to that.
Yeah, I mean, and yes, and the thing I like about that is there isn't the long dialogue
Right.
So when Hollywood gets its grubby fucking paws on this thing, expect there to be a long dialogue between the two of them,
Yes.
right? And I
The
like that it
reckoning.
didn't go that route. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like that. That was the proper end for such a villain. But then also, like, I did roll a tear or two with the family reunion and like seeing her mother's grave and getting the closure of like being with her dad, but also like visiting her mom's grave. But I did not expect her to use those glasses at the very end of the book and actually look at a creature. So like, if you want to talk about the arc of a character, like at the beginning of this book, she would never think about doing it. She would never try to do it. She would, anybody in earshot, she would like force to not do it. And by the end of the book, she does it herself. And I thought that that was a very powerful moment. It was a little bit surprising. And I think, it was like, it represented her finally kind of loosening up and kind of feeling hopeful again, which didn't happen at all, you know, really until that point.
Yeah, I mean that last chapter is when she becomes more likable. If there's a a third book in this series, fucking Malorie might be a fucking blast, right? She wants to go hook up with Dean, get some action.
She's
right?
gonna go, yeah. Like, you're gonna be riding that train.
Yeah.
Also, unless you have more thoughts on that,
the train riding thoughts, no.
The train riding thoughts. The her freaking out in that safer room pit was astonishingly well written. It was basically like it was her like Al Pacino monologue moment where she just ranted everything that she, you know, kept inside, including like her disappointment in herself and her hatred of everything and all of it. It just came spilling out, and like you could read the volume of her talking, if that makes sense. And I feel like that was very well done. And I was thinking to myself as I'm reading it, is Tom close enough where he could hear it, like that type of thing? So I find that was a very powerful part of the book too.
So this didn't occur to me until you were talking about that. What's your take on it? Was there a creature in there with her? I mean, Olympia says there wasn't. Do you think she was just freaking out? Like she brushed up against, you know, whatever, a rip hanging out of the wall and assumed that was a creature? Yeah,
because it represents kind of her like breaking point of madness. Like she's tried so hard to not go mad that it drove her mad. So I feel like there was not a creature there.
I guess the one other thing I'll say, because we really can't talk about creatures so much in the regular review, I find it interesting that he gave them a little more personality. I don't know if that's the right word, right? But where they're just like curious about us,
right?
Like they just watch us do shit, which is something I don't remember getting from Bird Box. Like we didn't know anything about them. We didn't know what they look like. I mean, now we have like still a very vague idea. We don't know why they're here or what they want, but it was interesting to see that they're more observers than trying to cause the chaos and insanity and death that they did cause.
Yeah, which raises questions, and I think that if I remember correctly, it kind of even came up in the book of like, why are you doing this? If you see what you're doing, why do you continue to do it? Like you have to understand how devastating your presence has been to us. That was part of Mallory's rant, I think. So yeah, like, and expanding on that, like just the book does a great job of acknowledging a lot of the thoughts that we had naturally after reading Bird Box. Is like, well, what does this mean? What are they? How do they work? Why does this happen? And like, yeah, so like those types of things are addressed nicely in this. And those glasses, man, I thought that was going to be, I didn't think that was going to turn out that way.
Yeah. Well, you know, there was a little bit of telegraphing that, right? So I thought maybe we lose Tom to the glasses, but you know, he talks about the two-sided glass. He takes the glasses with him. I mean, pretty early on, I think we had an understanding that we were going to see those glasses at some point, the ones in his bag.
Chekhov's glasses.
And I know that, Yep, and that's not exactly how it wound up going down, but that was the catalyst for.
Got to give it up to the Indian River people for not letting him be the first person to try them.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that too when you were talking about the corpses outside. Like, how many people are just like, I'm not going to live my life this way anymore.
Right.
Like, I'm ready to throw in the towel. So if you say you have a solution, let me try the fucking solution because I'm done with this shit. So either this solution works or I'm out.
Or I'm done. Yeah. But then
Yeah,
also
so.
imagine taking that to its logical next step. Imagine you're the two dudes who volunteer to do the mirror thing. And it doesn't drive them mad. Like, what's that sigh of relief like? Like, oh, thank God.
No kidding. No kidding. So I mean, I guess we're probably not going to see a third book in the series, which is single mom Malorie on the dating scene. But it's interesting because life somewhat goes back to normal now, right? Like, word gets out, everybody gets these face shield / glasses that they use, right? And the world repopulates. I mean,
Yeah, well,
for the most part, right?
yeah, that's the first step toward recovery. Kind of, it goes from survival to existence to whatever comes next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And prosperity.
The next book is going to be called Tom, and it's him going around the world helping people make glasses.
It's Tom on a commercial for an optometrist that makes glasses for seeing the creatures. So, any rate, yeah, great stuff, man. Really, really well thought out and well executed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing you can expect from Malerman is a good story, and I think that's what this was a very good, very well told story. So, that's probably going to wrap it up for Spoiler Talk. Thanks for joining us. We're probably going to have some spoilers to talk about for our next book. I'm guessing I started it a long time ago. The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. So hopefully we'll be back with more spoilers next week. Thanks as always for supporting us. We love you. Couldn't do this without you.